Okay, I'd like to call this October 19th, 2020 regular board meeting to order. Mr. Roberts, will you please call roll?
Mr. Butler?
Here.
Mr. Kruger?
Present.
Mr. Metzler?
Here.
Mrs. Talley?
Here.
Mr. Unati?
Here. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Sattler, do you have any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
We do not have any additions or deletions tonight.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Unati?
A second.
Mr. Butler? Mr. Roberts, you please call roll.
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 for the agenda. We're going to move right into presentations. First presentation is Mr. Steve Donahue for the National Barber Museum. Is that mic on, Jim?
Good evening, Steve Donahue, President of the Canal Winchester Area Historical Society. Larry Flowers is the Vice President, and we got the short straw, you're right, being President. What we've given you is a rough picture of what we want to put a mural going into the Barber Museum on the right-hand side. We have a, you guys know we have that brick patio, pavers, and nobody knows that's even there. And I'm trying to think of the gentleman that came into one of our meetings. He said, you know, you need something there. So we thought, let's put a mural up like you see in town. The people that do in town is also a trustee for us. This rendering, the person cutting hair is Ed Jeffers. He was the original owner and so forth. He's passed away. And the gentleman sitting in the chair is Mike Apollotti, the curator. And Mike would have been here tonight, but he had some major surgery and is at home. And above this, it's going to have National Barber Museum, and below commemorative patio. And we're here to ask for your approval to put that on there. Yes?
Will be actually painted on the?
No, it'll be just like you see downtown.
Big sticker.
It's a
type of thing?
process, yeah, it's heated process. The ones at downtown, some have been there for many years. Actually, they're only supposed to be there a year. It's only supposed to last a year, but as long as no kids rip it down, you could have it for many years.
So it can be removed if needed and
Yeah,
stuff
no
like that.
problem.
This looks awesome. I was curious, what do you think the dimensions are going to be like? You got an idea what this says?
Yeah, the murals will be 8 by 10.
Okay.
We're really kind of make a statement there.
Okay.
It's on the south side of the entrance, so we have a big space there.
Yeah, I don't know if they could hear you or not.
Move over, Donnie. We have a lot of big brick space there, wall, and so 8 by 10 will make a nice, present nice on that side of the building.
Well, I enjoy when I drive through downtown, I'll go through Waterloo just because it adds a lot of character. And that's one nice thing about coming from another town is like you come into Canal and it still has that small town feel, but at the same time, you still have that city, you're close to the city. So I enjoy like the brick buildings and the murals. So I definitely think that something like this would add character to the community. So I don't see why this is something.
And if
we
you
can't-
know these two guys, we're putting a couple characters in the mural.
But they're the ones that have done the work. They're the
Excellent.
ones that deserve to be up there.
Excellent.
Yeah, we are, since this virus thing, we've had appointments only. But last 3 weekends, I've showed people from West Virginia, from Illinois, people are coming in, calling in like a week in advance and saying, when can we get in?
Okay.
Good.
And I told the curator that there'll be none this weekend on Saturday afternoon.
Why is that, Mr. Donahue?
So
Just kidding.
we approve it. Do you guys have a time frame? Obviously, it's getting cold outside. You thinking in the springtime, or you
So we'll
thinking?
probably have it done before that.
Okay.
We've already worked with the company. We've also, the trustees have approved the amount, the budget of the amount. We've worked with the artists, so we're ready to go.
I assume that these ceilings are 10 feet.
Would the screen be about a little bit bigger than the screen? Probably?
8 wide, 10 high, so.
Oh,
put the
yeah.
Screen
It'll
up
be-
one at the side.
Yeah.
It'd be just like
A little bigger than
two of
that.
those panels.
That's probably like.
That's probably
5
6
8.
by 8 or something.
All right, any other questions? I think when this one wears out, you two are the next two.
We're already worn out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue. Thank you, Mr. Flowers.
And we don't need like a vote or anything, we're just,
You could take a vote if you want, just to make it official, but I think
we're good to go.
we're good to go.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next up is middle school presentation. We have Kelly Zipchek, for the principal.
Okay, can you hear me okay? All right, I'm going to invite Heather Boggess up here with me. Oh, she's already here. She's our leader of literacy at the middle school. And as a staff at the middle school, we are consistently reflecting on the culture and climate of our building. Our goal is to continue to make positive changes to impact our CWMS community. When making decisions at the middle school, we focus on our district mission of empowering all students, and this year, the implementation of Portrait of a Graduate. With a focus on improving literacy at the middle school, we want our students to have an ability to show respect, compassion, and kindness to all. So tonight, we will be presenting on cultural and global awareness and literacy at the middle school.
So I'm going to start off with this statement. I'm not going to read it for you, but we like to refer to books as being windows, sliding doors, and mirrors. Windows allow the reader to get a glimpse into someone else's world. When books become doors, the reader steps into that world. And when books are mirrors, readers find their world and themselves in the books they read. Our students need to find themselves reflected in their books. If they do not, they learn a powerful message about their value in our society. And it's also important for our readers to look into other worlds to gain understanding and empathy. And this quote is from Rudine Sims Bishop, a professor at Ohio State University who's taught children's literature courses.
I have some amazing language arts teachers at the middle school. So just as Mrs. Boggess stated in the previous slide, we want our students to see into other worlds and find their world and themselves in the books they read. So in 8th grade seminar ELA each year, my teachers have done an amazing job of building a social justice unit. So students participate in book clubs where they choose a book that centers around a social justice theme. Some of the themes, as presented in the books on the screen, address Indigenous rights and socioeconomic status, women's rights, women's educational rights, and racial disparities within the justice system.
Additionally, in the 8th grade language arts classes, they study the Holocaust. They're in the book Night. That's a nonfiction account of a survivor of a concentration camp. So again, they're learning empathy. They also incorporate picture books for topics of World War II and the Holocaust. Our teachers on Team 8-1 have also used a variety of texts for special projects, such as their community garden. They included the novel Seed Folks, which is about how a community of people of varying ages and backgrounds transform a neglected city lot into a productive garden. They also plan to use the book For Everyone by Jason Reynolds, and you will see him come up a lot in our presentation. But this is a book, it's a poem actually, that inspires everyone to dream, and also it teaches our students that dreams may take time and they may include struggles. And then the book there, A Day of Tears by Julius Lester, they'll use that later in the year with their American history with the Civil War. It follows the story and shares fictional experiences of the largest slave auction in American history, and it's told through dialogue and perspectives of the slaves and the slaveholders. And additionally, our teachers also use text for Black History Month, Hispanic History Month, and other events going on throughout the year.
If you follow, well, I don't know if you do, but if you have Instagram and you follow any of my 7th grade language arts teachers, they are constantly on Instagram because it hooks our kids doing book talks and sharing all the books that they've read. If you walk into any of their classrooms, they are giving engaging discussions and conversations about the books they're reading, trying to hook our students and encouraging them to read a variety of texts. So some of the book talk themes that you will see 7th grade language arts teachers do each year are on racial equality, mental health, stereotypes, social media influence, LGBTQ acceptance, and authors of color. And one of their favorite units in 7th grade is The Outsiders. And we chose this book. The teachers use this to address stereotypes and teach students the dangers of grouping people together before you get to know them.
In our 6th grade ELA classes, they have read aloud the book Ghost by Jason Reynolds. They also have read Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, which was by Dusty Bowling, our visiting author last year. And that book deals with the acceptance of students with disabilities. This year, they're looking to incorporate Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry in the spring as it is part of their Study Sync program. Additionally, our teachers, all of our teachers, including the 6th grade teachers, have created book lists in Destiny, which is our library program, to share with their students. And their lists include their favorite books, and those books are in a variety of genres, and they're also multicultural. And then I visit the classrooms this year using the mobile library cart, and in 6th grade especially, we talk about the books that are on the cart and recommend them, and we have a diverse collection of books on our cart. All right, so this is one of my favorite things to do as a librarian. We have our author visits, and we've been hosting authors in our school for many years, and I've always tried to change up the writing style of our authors, from those who write realistic fiction to those who write something such as science fiction or poetry. We try to get men, we try to get women, and we also include these diverse authors, such as Jamie Adolph back in 2005, Sharon Flake, the one there with the black and white shirt. She came twice to our school. The kids have loved her so much. And then Sharon Draper, she's a well-loved author, wrote a book, Tears of a Tiger. She came to our school in February 2016. And then we accomplished Jason Reynolds, who is an amazing author. And he came to our school 2 years ago as of yesterday. So yesterday was our big anniversary. And these authors provide our students with books that are mirrors in which our students see themselves. And they also provide those doors so students can get a glimpse and walk into the world of other people. And then here are a couple of quotes. And again, this was 2 years ago yesterday, and this came up on my feed on Facebook. And I want to point out, these are what the teachers said about our author visits. But I like that comment about boys. Boys that hate to read rush to meet him. So our author visits do have an impact, and their books are impacting our students. So just wanted to throw that out there. And here's some more pictures. Our students are showing off their autographed copies. The boy on the left did not have a phone with him, so he got creative and used his Chromebook to take a selfie with Jason Reynolds. He was so proud of himself. So again, he's reaching all of our readers. Then we come to the library collection. Part of my job in the library is to purchase books for our readers. As I am making lists and reading reviews of books to order, I add books that reflect our student population, whether it be the color of their skin or their cultural background. Once we receive these books, we promote them by reading them, becoming familiar with their story, and recommending them with our students. So we're pairing up our students with the books. Another way is to make sure that our books sit proudly on top of our bookshelves so the students can see them. A couple of years ago, during a PD day in our building, a guest presenter browsed through the library during a break, and she came up and talked to me, and she commented and said she felt very welcome in our library just because of the books we had on display, and she could tell that we were an inclusive school by what she had seen. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then a couple of years ago, we had the Telling a People's Story traveling exhibit come to our school. This was in November. And all the schools got to experience this. And I will say in our building, we had 100% participation. Every kid came through. And what this is, it's a collection of artwork and illustrations created by African Americans for children's books. Students browsed the artwork in the display and then selected a piece of artwork that interested them, and then they found the book in which that piece of artwork was contained. They read the book, and then they shared out. What did they learn? What did they feel? What did they know having had this experience? And I will say one thing when the kids first walked in, and I can't remember what grade level it was, this was in November, and one of the students said, "Is it Black History Month already?" And it lent itself to a great conversation to talk about how we should celebrate all cultures and all people all the time. So that was a great experience. I'm really glad that our students were able to partake in that. And there's some more pictures on the next slide. They were very much engaged. And then finally, our teachers are getting involved as well. Race relations was a prominent topic of discussion over the summer. So some of us teachers at the middle school decided we need to better understand how we got to where we are in our world. And our visiting author, Jason Reynolds, had just published, his book, Stamped, had just been published, and it seemed an appropriate book to read and discuss. And this is also a version that is accessible to our students so we can share it out with them. We had honest discussions, and we learned from each other and learned more about the history of racism. And then we pledged to each other to become allies and to do the work to become anti-racist. And so our work continues throughout this year.
Heather, if I may,
Yes.
Jason Reynolds' books, the two of them, what reading level are those? Because I may want to incorporate some of those in my curriculum.
Depending upon the book that you read, his book Ghost is highly appropriate for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, this book is probably more upper grade, just because of the topic.
My
But-
kids are lower level readers, so Ghost would probably work for them.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, follow-up? No, thank you very much. Appreciate the information.
Kudos.
Good job.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, our third presentation is going to be CWEA.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Rice. I'm the secretary of CWEA. At Indian Trail, Mrs. Rapp's class is reading It's Okay to Be Different by Todd Parr for our Respectful Citizen this month. They are talking about diversity and why it's okay to be different. They will compile a class book together. Each student will get a paper and write It's okay to blank. They'll draw an illustration to match their sentence, and she'll attach their picture in the corner. They will decide together a name for the book so that they can be proud and learn to respect their differences and similarities. Second graders at Indian Trail did a portrait of a graduate lesson. Students used their dry erase boards to draw pictures of what being a respectful citizen looks like at school, at home, and in the community. At Winchester Trail in 4th grade, ELA teachers have adapted the writing lessons for their first unit. During this time, rather than revisiting the parts of writing a friendly letter, students are learning about the parts of a professional email. 5th graders in Mrs. Thompson's science class are starting their first science experiment this week. It is going to look a little different than normal, but students will have their own pendulums to use, and they will utilize the online Gizmo website for a digital simulation of a grandfather clock to partner with the pendulums they make in class. At the middle school in 7th grade social studies, students will be analyzing primary source documents to determine if Alexander the Great should be remembered as a hero or a villain. They will work on the standards of reading closely to determine what the text says explicitly and make logical inferences from it. And they will analyze how 2 or more texts address similar themes or topics in order to build knowledge or compare the approaches that the author takes. And those are updates. Thank you.
Any questions? Follow-up? Thank you very much. We are going to move into public voice. Jim, do we have public voice?
Yes, we have one gentleman tonight, Paul Markoff. He is a parent of he's a parent in the community, and his subject is returning to full-time in-person learning. Mr. Markoff?
And that mic is on, so you should be good. Just start talking to it. We're going to have you 5 minutes. There'll be follow-up questions if necessary, but the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Sattler and Board, for allowing me the chance to speak here tonight. I am here to discuss hopefully an in-person 5-day-a-week instruction in school. The current Educational format, either hybrid or online. My children in the 5th and 8th grade, it is failing. It flat out, it's not working. My children's grades have dipped a little bit, albeit slightly, but I would say equally concerning is the fact that they're not being taught for 60% of the week. So they have their online learning from Monday to Wednesday, and then they attend school on Thursday and Friday. My 5th grader, when she's at home, the amount of work that she has from Monday to Wednesday probably ranges anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. That does not seem like a sufficient amount of work in order to be educated. Sometimes there's a difficulty with the instructions that they'll receive via online to complete their assignments Monday to Wednesday. And unfortunately, and I don't think this is the teacher's fault at all because they're teaching in class, but they can't spend the attention with the students that are working from home as well. So it's left up to us parents to review the instructions and provide guidance to our kids. And flat out, my wife and I did not study education in college, and we do the best we can, but it's not the same as the teachers. I sent each of you an email late last night that I put out a petition to try to garner other people's voices in the community that are also in support of 5 days a week in-person instruction at school. As of the last time I looked, there were 126 signatures on the electronic petition, and I'd like to share a few of the comments that were included by those that signed the petition. One is from a Cassandra who says, "I'm signing because my kids deserve teachers who are educated to teach them in person. My IEP student deserves the help he needs on school premises. Their grades are failing at home with 2 working parents. Back to school, please." Another comment from Andrea, not my wife Andrea, but another Andrea. "Our children need to get back to school 5 days a week. They are falling further and further behind. This is not working for the children or parents. It's time to try something different and get our kids back to school." And then the last comment I'll mention, and there were probably anywhere from a dozen to 15 comments here. The last one is, "My son has ADHD, and his learning is suffering because he is unable to stay focused at home." I'm sure you're all familiar with the Ohio Department of Education's link, which talks about a responsible restart at education.ohio.gov/topics/reset-and-restart. The model they give is of the state of Ohio and the various school districts. There are 612 school districts, and according to their default educational model for the general school population, and again, they didn't confirm it with each district, but they indicate that 366 of the 612 are planning a return to school 5 days a week in person. Some of these schools are right here around the area: Bloom Carroll, which is just down the street, New Albany, Tays Valley, Amanda Clear Creek, and then from the private sector, St. Mary's and Fisher Catholic. Each of these schools has been able to return to in-person 5-day-a-week education. I think we can do that here at Canal Winchester, and I was hoping that our administration could reach out to our local districts to find out how they're doing it so we could model their example. I know the main reason why we're not is because of safety. This data is as of July 21st of this year, per the CDC. 6.6% of the reported COVID-19 cases are from children. That's 6.6%. 0.1% of the deaths are of children. 0.1%. According to a column published in the Federalist on July 17th of this year, these statistics are as of June 17th of this year, and this includes children under the age of that are 15 or under. There were 26 children that died from COVID-19 nationwide. Not trying to be morbid, but to keep that in context, 122 children 15 and under died from flu, 536 children 15 and under died in car accidents, an additional 349 15 and under died in pool accidents. The American Academy of Pediatrics, also in August of this year, they did some studies. They looked at a couple studies in Switzerland and China. I can send you the link to it. I don't want to waste my 5 minutes. But they found that children are rarely the source of transmitting the virus. Quote from the study by the American Academy of Pediatrics is, these data all suggest that children are not significant drivers of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although I understand the school is still concerned, obviously, about the spread of COVID-19 within our community, and I know we've just moved up to the red level, there are obviously other risks associated, and I would say greater and more impactful on our students from keeping them at home. These include psychological and emotional. This can lead to depression and anxiety. And I know, and I don't have the children's stats, but I know that the drug use is up in Franklin County, and presumably the suicide rate is as well. Our kids need to interact with each other. This is, I think, devastating from both the mental and social aspect. I guess I'd like to end in, each of you took a photo, I think probably right here, under this banner that says empowering all students for success. And I don't think currently we're empowering all our students for success. And I think right now the risks of returning them to school are so minor compared to the rewards that they'll reap from returning to the classroom. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Go ahead and stay there. Anybody have any questions for Paul or follow-up?
Yeah, but I'd
We
like-
are, real quick, we are going to get into this as a discussion item at the end of this meeting.
I saw that.
That was
great.
on, so if we don't address everything right now with you, you might want to hang out and hear the conversation, because we are going to be discussing, what that looks like for us. So, go ahead, Mike.
I think everybody wants to bring our kids back to school, and the risk versus the reward is something that we have to weigh. And having taught for quite a while, I know for a fact it's not as good as having kids in front of me 5 days. So we're going to weigh that against everything and make the best decision we can for our kids. So we do appreciate that, everything you've said.
It just seems like the risk of contracting COVID is extremely rare in children, and the rewards of getting it back would be tremendous.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, I was following your petition on Facebook, and I mean, you've got over 260 comments and growing from your original post. And, as you kind of, I think you may have been a little caught off guard about how conflicting views are out there in the community. And that's something that we have to assess, with the teachers and everybody. It's not a war. It's like who's right, who's wrong. It's a process, and we're trying to figure out what that is. What's that make sense for my family? What's that make sense for your family? And so we're put in a very difficult position, as you'll hear later tonight, that we're going to talk about this. And again, just in your posting, I saw some really aggressive folks coming at you, thinking you're crazy for even offering a 5-day a week. And so we have to take that in consideration. We have to take you in consideration in the future. Everyone's kind of making this up as we go. So we're trying to assess that and figure out which is going to be best for our community. What's good in New Albany may not be good for Canal. And Jim's looking at numbers on a weekly and biweekly basis from OSU, and we're, what is it, the CSTAT or?
Cats.
The CATs. We're constantly viewing these numbers, and again, there's been a spike. So here we think, okay, let's talk about this plan, and then it spikes, and like, whoa, let's hold off, and maybe it is postponed until things come back under. So I hear you. I think everyone here would like to get the kids and the teachers, in fact, would get everybody there 5 days a week as soon as we can, but there's a lot of obstacles stopping us from doing that.
To your
And you'll
point,
hear
I
us
think-
talk about that as well. So.
To your point, I think there are multiple right answers. Like, I think you can continue online education and for those that are concerned about contracting the virus and those that voiced opposition to my Facebook post.
Yeah.
And then you can also offer 5 days a week in-person education for those 126 individuals that sign the petition. And again, those are 126 people. That's not one signature per student. So I have 2 children. There's someone else that I know that has 2. There's another person I know that has 4. So
And you and your wife both signed it, so from one household, you've got 2.
Fair.
And Jim, I mean, we have 3,800 students.
39.
And then we also
3,900.
have to take into consideration, we're also talking about our staff, we're talking about the people they come in contact with. So, I mean, I think what Mr. Kruger's trying to say is that we're trying to take it and be responsible with our plan, but we also have to be cognizant that the spikes aren't just happening in this community. And 674 and Groveport Road don't just stop at Canal Winchester's border. So we have to take into factor what's going on all around us as well. However, Mr. Markoff, I do want to thank you for coming up here, and I don't want to cut you off. I did want to just say that it's not easy getting up here and speaking in front of the board. So before I say anything else, I wanted to make sure I thanked you for coming out and voicing your opinion, because anytime we get feedback from the community, that helps us make decisions, and that's what we need as a board. So you coming up here is, before I say anything else, I just wanted to let you know that we appreciate you coming up here and speaking tonight.
Thank you. There is one other thing I would like to say, if I may. We're all focused on the COVID numbers, and where are those going and how are they coming? And as the science apparently says, the students, not only are they not very affected by COVID-19, but they're not transmitting it to others. So not only there shouldn't be that great of concern. I mean, I'm still concerned. Our children are still wearing masks, they're adhering to social distancing. But the risks are not great for the students to contract it. It's also not great for them to transmit it. So the teachers themselves shouldn't be that worried based on the scientific data that is being presented. But we're so focused on the COVID-19 numbers, which can be attributed if there's someone that gets COVID-19 in the Canal Winchester School District, you're obligated to inform everyone that there's been a case. And then I suppose if there's an outbreak or a certain number, you can see those numbers at each individual school. The numbers that you're not being associated with, but that you're directly impacting, is the issues with depression and anxiety and stress. And those aren't known, and those aren't being placed on the Canal Winchester local schools. But in a direct way, really, Canal Winchester local schools is responsible in some regard for those numbers as well.
And I wrote that down here because I like to discuss that later in, because I think Canal has really been very proactive with putting professional folks and resources in front of this, as far as behavioral specialists and social workers. And I'd like to hear and have you hear, what we're doing from a district for those concerns and those families that, I was just talking to Max before, the principal at Winchester. The principals and admin, they're making Wednesdays, they're going house to house and they're talking with folks and checking in. So there is a care and concern for these students. I don't want you to think or have anybody think that the social and behavioral part of this process is being overlooked. It is not. And I'd like to address a little bit more of that later on.
I didn't know that, and I appreciate that. But unfortunately, that still can't replace the interaction that the kids get.
I agree
with one another
100%.
and the
It does not. But again, I appreciate you putting yourself out there, because I
Sure.
think on Facebook, you put yourself out there like, ooh, I didn't realize this was all, going to come from both angles. So,
Now I know how each one of you feel.
so thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for
Markoff.
this.
Thank you.
I said, does anybody else have anything else? I didn't mean to. Okay, thank you, Paul. We're going to move into executive reports. Mr. Roberts with the treasurer's report.
Good evening. I'm going to highlight just a few things tonight. If you want to open up the financial report at the top. I just want to highlight a couple revenue items. Keep going. I want to do the year over year. Keep going. One more. Right here. Right there. It's good. I just want to highlight 1.01 and 02. We received our property taxes settlement from Franklin County. You can see that they're up slightly. It's not a whirlwind of cash, but it is a good thing. But the big one is in line 1.06. We have properties in the district that are tax exempt, and we get TIF payments, tax increment finance payments. And those were lagging behind a little bit. We receive about $575,000 a year. We received about $375,000 last year. So we had some catch-up payments. So we received, I think, about $375,000 total, and we're going to receive about $900,000 this year. So it's kind of bailed out the other revenue line for us. If you remember, last month it was down pretty drastically. Now it's trending up $400,000. The property tax allocation, that's a state reimbursement, that's the homestead and rollback. I can tell you that we're negative 619. When we do receive that, it will be over the 619, so that will be a positive also. The last one that we're waiting on is line 1.03. We'll get the income tax settlement at the end of this month, and we'll know exactly where we stand with the late filing that happened in July. So that's really the last significant revenue line item that we're waiting to know for sure how COVID has impacted us to this point.
So by the end of the year, those numbers should look very different.
Yes, they're going to look tremendously different, especially income tax. Now, the 1.035, the unrestricted, that's the state aid. That will continue to be a negative. That was the decrease. We lost $545,000 last year due to the reductions that the governor issued. So that will continue to be in the negative. But hopefully the other line items will make up for that and will be at least a break even, if not a positive in the revenue. I only want to highlight the revenue tonight because obviously the revenue drives and dictates everything we do expenditure-wise. If the revenue is not there, we can't do certain things, and we control the expenditures a little bit more. So it's good to see COVID's not having the impact on the district that we thought it would, and we kind of had a feeling on that because in 2009, during the last recession, we weren't greatly impacted. Canal was still growing. Canal was still had value increases. For example, Franklin County residents are looking at a 20% increase in their home values, most likely, with the reappraisal or the update. I know that I think they had sent letters out to all the Franklin County residents and giving them opportunity to challenge their new value. So if you don't have any other questions, we'll be approving the forecast next month. So this is a pretty good driver of where we're headed. I have a pretty good idea. It's not going to change much probably from the May forecast that we approved. We're still trending in the right direction.
Well, I saw that, and I was going to say, it looks like our overall cash balance actually was an increase of like 7.5%, so I thought that was really interesting to look at. And then also our expenditures, it looks like we were actually down a little bit on our expenditures as well, so that was something else that kind of stuck out to me too.
Hey, Nick, could
So-
you, I'm sorry to
Go
interrupt.
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but line 3.02, can you tell me why that seems fairly significant? 9.4%.
Yeah, that line is made up of retirement and health insurance, which are the two big drivers. So as salary goes up, the retirement drives up because it's a percentage, 14% of the total salary. And then health insurance is another big driver. And we did have slightly higher rates last year, plus we've added some new employees. We've had existing employees jump on to the plan. So we've increased membership, plus rates went up slightly. So 9.4% is not bad when you're doing some of those things with salaries going up $363,000. So, and then we obviously know I've said it for like the last 16 months, the $723,000 we paid off the operations center last year. So it looks like we're down a lot more when realistically you can back off $625,000 of that. We're actually only down $100,000 in purchase service.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
And you said we're going to get more information about the income tax, and that's going to come with that 5-year forecast next month, and we'll have better numbers at that point.
Yeah, we typically approve it in October. They extended the deadline last year to November 30th, and I didn't want to bring a forecast without knowing that number. So I at least wanted to get the income tax settlement to be able to have a correct and more accurate forecast with that in there. I didn't want to show a $350,000 deficit in income tax.
Sometimes the state kind of gives you an idea. Have we got any idea, like, is it trending pretty stable with where projections are, or are we seeing like a little bit of a dip? I know it's kind of hard it's hard to speculate now, but have you got any?
No, the collections were way up in July for the state, so we should be close to recouping that negative.
Okay.
So I feel 90% confident that we're going to be okay with that line item,
Okay.
but it's still a guess.
Gotcha.
You good?
Yep, we're good.
Any other questions for Nick? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to superintendent's report. Mr. Sattler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kruger. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to all our viewers. Tonight would have been the first student of the quarter recognition ceremony, but because of the COVID, we decided not to have the in-person one, but we thought it was important to recognize our students who earned the first Student of the Quarter award. The recognition began 13 years ago as a way for the Board of Education to recognize students who demonstrate their best, be it academically or in terms of school citizenship. Many of our students are recognized in other ways at the individual buildings. And Student of the Quarter is just one more way for the board to say thank you to the parents, students, and to the staff at each of our buildings for such excellent effort. So tonight, I'm going to call up each principal, and they're going to read off the names of the Student of the Quarter for their building. And I will start with Mr. Henderson, high school principal. Mr. Henderson?
Hold your applause, please, for Mr. Henderson.
Good evening. Okay, so academic student of the quarter for the high school, freshman Michaela Merrill and Xavier North. Sophomore, Kaylin Stover and Mamadou Kane. Junior, Fardous Faki and Emmanuel Armstrong. And senior, Dylan Parker and Ryan Salalahi. Thank you very much. Thanks, sir.
And the principals will also recognize them in the individual buildings. On to the middle school, Principal Mrs. Kelly Zivchak.
Good evening. From 6th grade, we have Trevor Barno and Kinsley Swisher. And recognizing 7th graders, Sawyer Meadows and Nene Ba. And from 8th grade, Carter Phillips and Kaylin Martino.
Thank you, Mrs. Zivchak. On to Winchester Trail, Principal Mr. Max Lolithan.
Good evening. From 3rd grade, we'd like to recognize Mia Oliveira and Boston Kelly. In grade 4, Kerrigan Rapp and Jason Semino. And in grade 5, Nathan Rain and Tatiana Williamson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lolithan. And finally, from Indian Trail Elementary, Principal Mr. Eric Riddle.
Thank you. Good evening. My 2 kindergarten students that we would like to recognize are Isaac Smeltzer and Peace Katagambe. Our 1st grade students are Jabril Baugh and Alicia Ortiz. And our 2nd grade students are Maggie Farley and Austin Harrelson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riddle. And just so everyone knows, all our students, whether you are in the school-based track and or Koala, had a chance to be part of the Student of the Quarter for the 2020-21 school year for the first recognition. So congratulations to all our students, and keep working hard. Okay, on to my next item. This Wednesday, October 21st, from 6 to 8 p.m., we will be hosting a virtual discussion to hear about ways that the district can move toward positive change in our school district by talking about the issues of race, diversity, and equity. We have 21 participants that will be participating in it. We will have it on our YouTube channel for people to view only. But the 20 people received their invitation today, and that starts at 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We'll set out an invitation for the YouTube channel on Wednesday if people want to watch the discussion. You know, the current climate tells us that there is room for change, and we need input from our community. And as a school district, we aim to support, prepare, and empower all our students. And we are currently taking steps to evaluate and take stock of our role as educators in the movement toward anti-racism and inclusion. And as I said earlier, we have 21 participants, and I'm looking forward to the discussion on Wednesday. And that will start at 6 p.m. And as of right now, that's all I have for the board. We'll have our back-to-school discussion later at the end of the meeting. And as always, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Sattler. We're going to move on to building district reports. Does anybody have something they want to highlight, bring up, ask questions?
I do. I don't need the report pulled up, but food service, just every now and then just check out that report. Food service is operating well. The government extended the lunch program, breakfast program through June 30th, so that's good. Mr. Watson's constantly monitoring the food service. Luckily, we're in a good financial condition. No other schools are having to supplement general fund dollars to cover. We've got a $400,000 plus cash balance. We probably will lose a little bit of money, but it's not going to be tremendous, and we've got the cash balance to get us through the year. So, just wanted to point out that food service was extended through June 30th was the big news that came out this week. So,
Thank you. Anyone else have? I've got something for Max. In your board report, you were talking about the 110 CWLS students and how you're connected through Class Dojo, and how there's different meeting times and making arrangements for the engagement with the families and the teachers. So I wanted to see if you could expand upon that a little bit for us.
Sure, I'd be happy to elaborate. So one of the nice things about our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers, particularly at Winchester Trail, is they have created a flexible schedule to where they are able to offer sessions in the evening and create one-on-one sessions as well throughout the day to meet the needs not only of the student but also of the parents, because it's a learning opportunity for them as well, because ultimately being flexible and adaptable is the key, but really partnering with the parents is essential at this time. So that's really been our theme, is really looking and focusing on the partner aspect. And so that's one of the things I think that has went really, really well. Giving that nighttime option for parents that are working throughout the day. And then those one-on-one sessions has also been essential. And what it really has done is created a great collaboration that we have with our school-based teachers and our CWLS teachers. So they are having pacing, so when that choice does come up maybe in the near future, they will know right where they're going to be. If they come back from being a CWLS, they'll be at the same pace. That was one of the things over the summer that we really looked upon, was making sure as a curriculum department and the administration wanted to make sure that we were pacing and doing things to that nature, that we would be kind of right on the same path, because we want to make sure that we're offering the same for both entities, CWLS and school-based.
How are your teachers adjusting to that? You know, obviously offering those times during in the evening time. I know they're using it probably remotely, obviously, but how have your teachers been responding to opening up?
We've given them some flexibility in their schedule. Sometimes they may come in at 11, but they stay till 7 to give that working parent the opportunity to really sit down with them. A couple teachers have actually opened up the door if they come in for a one-on-one session, maybe an orientation to walk through the Google Classroom, just to give that parent lens so they can see exactly what the student is doing, maybe if they're at a daycare throughout the day. So it really is, again, just building that relationship and that collaboration opportunity, and ultimately that partnership.
Yeah, I'd like to commend all the teachers for the hard work they're doing. I know for a fact it's exhausting having kids in class, out for a couple of days a week, and online. It's exhausting. So I want to commend them for all their efforts.
Well, and I will echo that since I have the mic for just a moment. They have put in an absolute, a ton amount of time, really, balancing this. This has been a huge transition. We have students in class Monday, Tuesday, but you're also serving them at home, servicing them on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the same for the B-Day kids. So they have put in a lot of extra time, and they're going to reap the rewards, because this is something that they're building as a library, that they're going to be able to utilize this technology and these things in the Google Classroom, specifically in the K-5 building with Mr. Riddle and myself, that they're going to be able to utilize for years to come. So we're really giving them that lens of you're building it now, but you're going to be able to utilize it in the future as well. So it's not just a one-stop shop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I even see a Sunday night option as well. Again, making the teachers available for times with the family.
What's nice about the Sunday night option is they have until basically 10 o'clock on Sunday evening, the CWLS teachers especially, to where the students have to get their work turned in by 10 o'clock. So that gives them one last chance if they have any clarifying questions. It hasn't had a great success rate in attendance, but it still is an option if the parents reach out.
Sure. Different way of thinking about it, so I appreciate being open and your staff being open to different hours and different ways to engage, so.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and if you impact a few that do show, that's That's more than anybody else, yes.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues here. I'm coming from the perspective of a koala parent, and I just wanted to say how extraordinary the teachers have been, and it truly is a partnership between the parents and the staff, and anything that I need, the teachers are there to provide it. They are also making themselves available for office hours outside of their regular class meet times. So I just wanted to speak on that they have been very exceptional, adapting to the remote learning and helping parents in the way that they need. And I just wanted to emphasize, if there's anyone that may be having struggles in the remote learning program, just engage, ask, because they are willing to help you with whatever it is that you need. And I can say that firsthand with my experience.
Thank you, Mrs. Talley.
You're welcome.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Max.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. Thank you.
From Indian Trail, I don't know if, Eric, you gave a link to the Peace Room, right? And I spent about 20 minutes today in the Inspirograph making pretty cool designs. If you guys get bored at work or you need a little stress relief, it's not just for the students. I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
today.
and that's a virtual Peace Room that
yes.
you're speaking about. Yeah,
Yes.
that was really a collaboration with Beth Henshaw, who's our school counselor, Susan Kirkpatrick,
Yep.
who's our social skills teacher, and Jenna Roberts, who is the district behavioral specialist. So yeah, it's something that we need at this time. It was very creative and it was very innovative to meet our students who may be having those situations. So thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on it. If you go there, it's like a little library, and you kind of click on different things. And I hit that Inspirograph and got carried away. So it's
Yeah, I was going to say it's good for the parents as well to utilize it.
But again, those are tools and resources out there that I think, folks need to engage and see that, because, we are trying as hard as we can. It is very difficult. It is very different. So we're trying to provide a lot of tools and resources out there. You just got to know where to find them, and hopefully throughout. I mean, we just got through week 6, I think it was. 7. There's a whole lot of learning to do yet. So patience and grace is something to go along with all that as well. Oh, that's it with my questions. Anybody else have any district report questions, comments? Okay. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. I'm going to need a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mrs. Talley? And I'll go ahead and second that, Mr. Roberts. I believe Mr. Sotler is going to be running with this evening.
Yes, I will do the consent. So the first item are the minutes from the September 21st, 2020 regular board meeting and October 2nd, 2020 special board meeting as attached. The second one, we have 2 donations. One from Aaron and Sam Mosley, the Mosley family, to Canal Winchester Middle School in an amount of $3,000, and one from the Brock Strong Foundation to the Canal Winchester Athletic Department for $5,000. As always, we're extremely appreciative of any donation that we receive from our community. So thank you very much to the Mosley family and the Brock Strong Foundation. Number 3, certified personnel. We have a leave of absence request for Andrea Rumery, and if I said that wrong, Andrea, I apologize. High school teacher with the tentative due date, February 14th. Oh, that's nice. Nice Valentine's Day gift there. Also, we have retirement. 2 retirement letters, one for Joe Arndt, high school counselor, effective June 1st, 2021, and a letter of retirement purpose for Wendy Miller, Indian Trail teacher, effective 2021. Both teachers have over 20 years of experience in the district alone. Wendy Miller has worked for 20 years for the Canal Winchester School District and has served as both a PE teacher and most recently as an intervention specialist. And Mr. Arndt has worked in education for 33 years and has served Canal Winchester for 24 years. and he has served as both a teacher and a school counselor. So it's always great to see retirements from people that have been with the district for a long period of time. So we're very fortunate to have them, and I just want to wish them the best of luck in their retirement years. Of course, that's at the end of the year. Number 4, classified personnel. We have approval for 2 days of unpaid leave for Deborah Canini, middle school paraprofessional. We also have a resignation for a bus driver, Michelle Dudley. And then we have 3 bus drivers that we're going to hire, which is in need right now. Bus drivers are needed all around the state. But we're going to hire 3 bus drivers. And then we have 3 class substitute recommendations, all for custodian duties. And then 5 supplemental duties. We have 2 volunteer coaches, 1 for basketball and 1 for cheerleading. And then the last item is the approval of the consent agenda. Matt, that's back to you, Mr. Kruger.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sattler? Mr. Roberts, you please call roll.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler? Mr. Unati?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to action items. We're going to need approvals for each action item, so I need a motion for subject number 1, which is the 2021-2022 school calendar as a final reading.
So moved.
Mr. Butler,
I'll second.
and we've got Mr. Iannotti.
All right, I know we're still trying to figure out the 2020 school year, but it's something we need to,
Yeah.
it's something that we do every year, is we, always look towards the following school year. We know people like to plan well ahead in advance. Hopefully, they can do a lot of planning for our next school year. But this is the second reading of the 2021-22 school year, with a starting date of August 18th for our students. And people are asking, why are we starting earlier? The most important, or the best answer is, 1, we want to end the semester during the winter break before we come back. This year we come back for 7 or 8 days, and we're still in second semester. So educationally, it makes sense to end that semester, or at least for the high school, because I know the K through 8's on a trimester, to end it right at that break. Plus, it gives us more days of preparing for state tests too. So it's kind of twofold. Everything else on there is pretty much a normal calendar in regards to Thanksgiving, winter break. And I think we come back, we end school on, was that May 25th, the last day for students. So we do have an Easter break, or a spring break, and then we'll get a Monday and Friday off for the long Easter weekend. And so that is the 2021-2022 school year calendar. And it is the second reading. We did we have to give it 1 month for our community for input. And so we're at that point. There's been no questions or other input about the calendar.
And this is being presented to us after approval by CWEA.
That is correct.
Any questions on the calendar? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Next action item, number 2, board policy final approval. We are not going to have Mr. Sattler read all of the changes. Mrs. Hunt did that last month. I don't know if anybody had any follow-up questions. If not, I need a motion for this, please. Mr. Iannotti,
No.
Mr. Metzler. Any questions on the changes?
No. This obviously, we went through the changes, and Mrs. Hunt shared it with the board, so we really haven't made any changes.
There are no changes from the previous meeting, so everything is as is. Yep,
Thank you,
that
sir.
is correct.
Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Next action item, number 3, insurance rates. Calendar year 2021. I'll go ahead and make a motion for that. Need a second?
Second.
Mrs. Talley. And I believe, Mr. Roberts, do you have this?
Yes, the only change that we're going to have this year is to health insurance. Dental and vision will be the same. The actuary report, they do a huge calculation of the last 18 months of claims. Came back that the projection that they wanted was 6.07. We have a cash balance, so I felt comfortable with keeping it under 5%, which is always nice. It's pretty much attributed to a cost of living increase. As you know, medical costs go up every year, just like everything else. If you go have a surgery this year and you go have the same surgery next year, it's going to cost more. So costs are always on the rise. So we're looking at a 4.8% increase. The family was 2,100 total. It's going to go to 2,200. And then the single was 884, I believe, going to 926. And you can see the board employee share, single 10% copay or co-insurance premium, and then families 25% from the employees. Any questions on the rates? They'll be in effect for the full calendar year from January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
If this was, if we were managing this ourselves, what do you think the rate increases would be at the?
Trends 12%.
12%.
Health insurance trends 12%. If we were not self-funded, we would be looking at a minimum of 12%. I would safely say that.
We thank you for that. Any questions? Mr. Roberts, you want to call roll?
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0. We're going to stay with action item 4 with the health insurance premium holiday. Need a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Mr. Butler, and then Mr. Yanati, and then Mr. Roberts. I'm sure you got this one as well.
Yeah, this kind of ties into the rates. So the insurance committee adopted a criteria instead of just coming out and saying, oh, we have cash, let's give a premium holiday. We thought, let's put some criteria to it. So we have a measurement period of October 1st through September 30th. And we basically said if the profit from those months exceed what our average receipts were in that month, then we would give a premium holiday, because a piece of that profit is attributable to the employees putting their share in also. So if we're always going to look at increasing the health insurance rates every time claims are high, then we should look at giving some of the money back if we're doing well in the program, since it is self-funded. So this year, our net profit through those months were $532,000. The average receipts were $517,000. So we barely made it. And we could have said, hey, due to COVID, that's the only reason we did it. But otherwise, we set the criteria, and I thought, let's follow it. Without the criteria, why have it? So recommending a premium holiday. What that means is we won't deduct any health insurance premiums from eligible employees for the month of December. So for a family plan, I think it's $525. Is that what it is, Mr. Watson? $525, and then the single is $84 for the month. So it's a pretty nice little bonus for people that have the health insurance, and
I know we've done
right
that
around Christmas time.
We've done that in the past, and we usually do it like December, January, to just kind of help out with the tax impact on it. So I think that's awesome. And I know I was looking at some of our numbers earlier on. I know we didn't see as many people utilizing the services, and our employees kind of being smarter during the whole quarantine. So I'm wondering if that attributed to us getting close to that break-even point that you were just talking about.
Oh, it definitely did. Before COVID, we were negative $350,000 plus, and so we made a $575,000 turnaround in the last March, April, May, June.
Awesome.
So COVID really had an impact on medical claims and dental claims, for that matter. Okay. Dental came back much quicker. Health is just now starting to get back to where people are feeling comfortable with going to see the doctor. I think elective surgeries are still down, and I think they'll be down probably for the next 12 months, which should help us. So we're not trying to set rates. The 4.8% isn't trying to set a rate that generates a profit. All we're trying to do is estimate what our costs are going to be and set a rate accustomed to that. So if claims are obviously lower, then we're looking to give some of that money back, because we don't want to just keep holding on to it and cashing out, because we're not looking to take money from employees to put in our fund. We're looking to just cover our costs in the self-funding.
Well, I still think that's awesome. I know I work for another school district, and 10% is pretty much standard. You kind of expect that every January to kind of take effect. So the fact you're talking about under 5% means that obviously we're doing some things right here, so that's a positive.
Yeah?
Yep, so, sounds good.
All righty. Any questions? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Beller?
Yes.
Mrs. or Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
I know.
I'm sure the employees appreciate that, and great timing, so. Action item number 5, we need a contract with the FCBDD. Need a motion? I'll go ahead and motion. Need a second.
Second.
Mr. Metzler.
Okay, this is a contract with the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities for a 1-to-1 services for one of our students that go there. And so it's a student that has some high needs, and it's important that we give them the services that they need in order to help the student. So it's for a 1-on-1 aid for one of our students.
Questions? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Action item number 6, payment in lieu of transportation. Need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Unati, I'll second. And it's probably,
Okay, this is a normal action item for us every year. We identify students that attend school outside of our district, and if we think it is impractical to provide them transportation, and then we pay them a fee in lieu of transportation. At this time, I think we have 48 students that we will be transporting outside the district, which is down if I'm.
Yeah, it was like 75 last year.
Yeah, we had about 75 last year, so it's down from last year.
makes sense.
So basically, these are kids that live outside of 30 minutes of the school district, try to transport them to school.
Questions?
This is pretty standard. We do this every year.
Every
so
year.
This isn't
Correct.
something we're just throwing
This
in
is
the mix.
nothing new. This is a normal routine action item for us.
What's the number we actually reimburse them for, you said?
How much?
$200.
Okay. Okay, so that's not a huge,
That's for a full year of self-transportation
okay. Yep.
in lieu of getting bus drivers, gas, equipment. Yep.
All right.
Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. That concludes the action items, which will lead us into discussion items. And as we talked about, the discussion of school-based return to school is going to be the one discussion item that we'd like to have. I'll go ahead and just start before I turn over to Mr. Sotler, but I had asked, there we go. I had asked Carla to be present tonight as she represents, she's a union president.
I also have our co-president, Deanna Summers, is here also, so both of us are here.
Wonderful. I know the decisions that we make as a board affect your folks, our folks, very greatly. So I wanted to make sure that you had literally a seat at the table as we have these discussions. There's absolutely nothing going to be decided on, voted on tonight. This is really just an open discussion, and I do want to hear from Carla and Deanna if about what's working out there, what's some positive, what are some struggles. I mean, obviously, as you heard from Paul in his postings, not everything is peachy. So we need to hear that feedback and figure out how can we get better. You know, we want to be an outstanding district. So if we were to ignore some constructive criticism, I think that would be short-sighted on our part. So there is no agenda. I know there's a lot of stuff going out there with other school districts. And again, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as a district, from the administration to the employees and the school board. So, Jim, do you want to start off, or give any words of wisdom to kick it off?
I think the most important thing for everyone to understand, that all of us, from the Board of Education, myself, to the administrators, the teachers, we want our kids back to school 5 days a week. We know that's the best way kids learn, that face-to-face instruction that's out there. Whether you're reading the American Academy Pediatrics report, CDC report, the American Federation of Teachers, whatever report, everyone says the same thing. The kids need to be in school. No one's going to question that. And I want our parents to know that, we understand that. And our job is to try to find that balance between what we're dealing right now with the COVID, whether the numbers are showing low or high, whether they're school-based kids, the numbers are low, whether it's community spread. One of the things that is stated by the American Academy of Pediatrics is not also, they talk about the science should drive decision-making, but they also talk about listening to your public health officials, listening to the people in the field in regards to what's going on in your area. And, we really they should be help guiding us make these recommendations moving forward. We're not the health experts, they are. And so that's something we have been doing. I have been doing ever since March, the last week in March. Every Tuesday, we meet with my Central Ohio Superintendent's Group, along with the Franklin County Department of Health, the Columbus City Health Department, and the Ohio Department of Health, and seeing what's going on in the area around us. I can't control outside of our area. I focus on Canal Winchester and what's happening here in Canal Winchester. We've had lengthy discussions with my administrators of, coming back to school 5 days a week. Our numbers, a couple weeks ago, the numbers were showing really low here in the area, and we've hit a spike, but we have been preparing for it because we know at some time we're coming back. Whether it's next month, whether it's second semester, or whether it's sometime next year. Don't know when the answer is, but we are going to come back full time. And there are some things, if it happens this year, some things we need to do to prepare for that moving forward. But there's a lot of information that goes into, and a lot of things as a board that we have to take into consideration, and we hear all sides. I hear the side from Mr. Markoff that we got to get our kids back in school 5 days a week, then I hear the other side of, I don't want my kid going to school at all. And so, and there is no middle ground. It's pretty much split between families. And what people believe, right or wrong, doesn't matter. That's just their belief out there. We are following the recommendations by the American Academy of Pediatrics. They said they want kids to return to school. We are in that plan. We have a school-based track that is either all in or a hybrid. So we do have kids coming back to school. It's not the 5-day in-person, but that is what they recommend, getting kids back to school in some way, shape, or form, and not just all online learning. And so I want to make sure that I clarify that, because that's in their report when they talk about that. And they talk about schools that have areas of high level of COVID spread should not be compelled to reopen against the judgment of local experts. And so we have to take all that into consideration as we move forward. So we have to look at the health and safety of our kids versus the social, emotional, and academic health of our kids, and figure out what's best for them moving forward. It's not a perfect plan, the hybrid. We know that. We understand that. We've got some good feedback from our parents, from our teachers, and we're trying to make it the best model for our kids. We're offering a lot of support. So anyone, whether you're school-based or whether you're Koala, you get the same support from guidance counselors, behavior specialists, and everything else that we have had in our district for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. They still have access to that. Part of what this is a collaborative effort. And I know it's hard for parents because they're working themselves, that have to come home and work with their kids, especially the younger kids. Maybe not so much the middle school, high school, but maybe our K-5 parents. It's a little more challenging when they're home all day, then you come home. We understand that. But as a group working together, we have to be collaborative, and we are depending on our parents to work with us through this situation to make it best for kids. And so, right now we do have a few school districts that are going back around the area. My focus is on Canal Winchester and what's best for our kids and our community moving forward. And so that's my spiel for right now, and we'll have further discussion in regards to hearing from Mrs. Shawinski.
Yeah, as you sit in hybrid right now, walk through some of the successes and the good that you feel has come from the hybrid from a teaching standpoint, from a student standpoint? You have some highlights to share?
You can tell Mr. Henderson was up here because I'm not as tall as him. I teach fourth grade. I do think my time on task with the smaller groups, I feel like I'm getting through more with them when I have them than if I had all 25 students there. Also, there is, like, we're getting into the groove now. So, like, I've figured out which of my kids need more support on the remote learning days. And I try to schedule some more support for them. The aides at fourth grade have been very good at what can I do. Mrs. Vance, like, got on Wednesday when we were in meetings doing planning. She got on with one of my students for a total of like 3.5 hours. Like, she did a morning session with him and then an afternoon session, trying to get him caught up and doing all of those things. So, like, we're now into that. We figured out who needs more support, and now how can I get them that support and get them going. I also feel like we are still, like, figuring out, like, today was the first day we've had to do inside recess. So what, you know, I can't get out my games for them to play. They can't play Connect 4 and all that. So like this was you know, I knew I had to be thinking about it, but today was, okay, what do we do for inside recess?
What did you do?
We watched the book fair video because we have the book fair coming next week.
Good.
And we did a couple other, like, activity type things, but, like, it was like, that was my, you know, there's still some daily, how do we figure this one out type of situation. I will say the students are doing really well. I'd say 95% of my fourth graders are doing great with wearing masks. They remind me, Mrs., you know, we didn't gel in or we didn't gel out, because when we come in and out of the classroom, we hand sanitize. So they remind me if I forget. So, like, they're getting the procedures of what we need to do and how do we, you know what I mean, and doing that. I have one young lady who is very good about, you know, like, I will remind kids, like, I'll point to put their mask up over their nose or whatever. And so, like, she'll see a friend and she'll go like this to them just to remind them, you need to pull your mask up. Like, so they're getting comfortable enough to remind each other if they see something that they need.
What does Wednesdays look like? Because I'm not an
I go
educator. I have
home
no
brain
idea.
dead on Wednesdays, to be quite honest. Like, my family has
So
learned
for
to
the
let
public,
me.
Wednesdays, is that all online day? Jim, is that what
It's a remote day.
Remote day, thank you.
So
yeah.
all students are on remote day on Wednesdays, for the most part. Our kindergarten students are not, and there's some special ed students that are not. I go home brain dead on Wednesdays because we work really hard to do planning.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that
Like, our day starts at Winchester Trail, our day starts at 8:15. Normally, the fourth grade language arts group, we're together by 8:45, 9 o'clock. We work, my teaching partner and I have started doing office hours from 11 to 12 for our kids. So, like, we've stuck an hour in there for the students to be able to get us virtually. Like, we have to stick a link in our Google Classroom, and then that way they can log in. And they have started using that regularly. I've also then reached out to parents and said, hey, you know, I've noticed so-and-so hasn't gotten their, you know, remote work done. Can you get them on at 11 o'clock with us? We do a short lunch break. Normally one of us runs and picks it up for everybody else. Panera has probably been fourth grade's choice here lately. And then we eat and we're back into it with science. Like, I do teach science, so we meet as the science group and work in the afternoon. We're also doing some other meetings, like our TBT meetings, and some of those things are scheduled during those days. Fourth grade roundtable, those things.
I was going to speak in more general terms than you. Overall, the collaboration piece has been huge, and that is specific to Wednesdays, I think because we have that time to collaborate with our peers. I would say that's one of the strongest things I've seen from this is our teachers are working together across platforms, whether that be face-to-face or the Koala students, or like myself, I do both. So, you know, we're really working across the platforms to collaborate. I think that's been one of the biggest strengths of this whole COVID debacle is that collaboration and then thinking outside of the box to come up with new solutions. It's kind of kicked educational practice in the butt, and I think that's a really strong thing that we needed to have done. As Deanna said, I think we're really getting in the groove now. Things are really starting to happen. If I may, I'm not sure if you had questions specific to this, but we put out a survey to our membership just to kind of get some specific data and some numbers to give you, and we found it to be very interesting. We have 241 members, and of that, 229 people responded to our survey, 95%. So our teachers are all in and want to be a part of this conversation, and we thank you for the invitation to be here to talk to you about these things. It's very, very powerful. Our teachers also want to be back full-time. Like Mr. Sattler said, we agree, face-to-face, 5 days a week is the best, hands down, no questions asked. However, in this current situation that we are in, we don't necessarily feel that's completely safe right now. The hybrid model that we came up with and created is working. Things are going well. Our teachers are getting things done, as Deanna said, about working in the classroom and getting more than just your 2 days worth of work out of those kids. They feel very strongly that they're getting more things done. Let's see here. I have some notes I just wanted to say. So we did ask the question, how do you feel about, let me make sure I read the right one. How do you feel about moving to a full-time schedule? We didn't put any dates or anything to it, but we did ask specifically. And I wanted to share those numbers with you because I think it's very informative, just to give you an idea of where our teachers are. We had 4 choices, and let's see here. One of the first choice was, we are ready, let's do this. And 8.7% of our teachers said that. That's 20 people. We then had, I think it could work, but we would need time to reevaluate the logistics of bringing students into the building. And that was 21.4%, or 49 teachers said that was their choice. Then our next one was, the way things are going right now, we need to hold off for a little while. We're not quite ready. That was at 40.6%, or 93 of our teachers. And then the last choice was absolutely not something we should consider anytime soon. And that was 29.3%, or 67 of our teachers. So when you look at that, 70% felt, we're not quite ready to do this yet. Varying levels, of course, as with anything. This is not black and white. This is just some numbers to give you some pinpoint, some figures on that. Sure.
What's the difference between the second question and the third question?
So we are ready, let's do this, meaning all let's go. I think it could work, but we need some time to reevaluate the logistics, meaning we're going to have to look at some things and redo some things. And the next one was, the way things are going right now, we need to hold off for a little while.
So you're saying a little less than a third are comfortable going back to a 4 to 5 day week of schedule, whereas the majority of your membership are
correct,
comfortable with the hybrid model or want to take things slow. And that seems like that's about 70% of your membership.
Yes.
I guess my question is, the second point is, they want to, maybe not now, but soon?
We did not put a specific timeline on this,
I'm just confused on what's the difference between the two.
So I think the way we interpreted this is that 21.4% said that they think that it could work, and they're ready, they would be willing to give it a try, but there's some pretty big logistical things that would have to work. And I'm making assumptions here, but I'm thinking of day-to-day schedules, lunch times, related arts schedules, busing schedules. Some things would have to really be worked over, and that's going to take a lot of time to make sure we do it right. I pride ourselves on the fact that we did this hybrid thing right so far, because we took the time to dig in and to really look at some things. And then the next one I interpreted as things are going, the way things are going in the world, and with the numbers just going up in Franklin County going to red. That was the survey came out on Friday. I think people are just like, you know what, let's just hold off a little bit here and wait and see. We don't want to jump the gun on this. That's my interpretation of that data there for you. Any other questions about that? Specific to the Wednesdays that you asked about, Mr. Kruger, our teachers think that's an absolute must. And I'm just going to put it out there that if there's any opportunity for such a thing to stay, should we go to any type of full-time, I believe the staff would be very supportive of that. We have lots of teachers that teach face-to-face and koala students, and doing that with 5 days a week with students would be nearly impossible to do. Just an idea, something to toss out there for that.
30% of the teachers that responded teach both koala and in person.
So there's a sizable number of our teachers. There may be more because not everyone is members, but there's a sizable amount. If I can just look at my notes real quick here. As I said, the hybrid system seems to be working. We're doing well. The social distancing, the cleaning regimes that we've got into place, the students coming 2 days a week, and then another set coming, seems to really be working, and we're staying healthy. By that I mean the students, but I also mean the staff. That's something that there's a lot of concern about. Should we come back 5 days a week? Is keeping the staff healthy. Agreed, students are different in the way they contract it, but adults are different too. Do you know what I'm saying? We have to consider that, because if the staff is sick and out, we don't have subs.
That's what I was gonna ask you, because I know for my building, that's becoming a big concern. And what happens is they start leaning on the teachers that have to cover classes. So then you have less and less people coming in, and more people are getting exposed going to different parts of the building. So I was gonna ask you.
That's exactly what's happening. I mean, kudos to all of our staff who's pitching in to make this work. It's happening, from the parapros to the custodians to the teachers. It's working. Bus drivers, everybody's putting in their time. But we're getting spread thinner and thinner. And I fear, of course I can't see into the future, but I fear that could become a major problem if the staff continue, have to quarantine or get sick of, we're here.
Is it less people are willing to come in, or are we just having less of a pool of subs because they're getting pulled out of places?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's done some research.
I'll take that for you. We have about 200 teachers in the area that signed up for Canal Winchester to sub. Now, a lot of them, when they say sub, they just put every school district down. So Mrs. Hunt and her team went through what's the number of the amount of subs that live somewhat reasonably close that they would come to Canal Winchester, and I believe we came up with about 70 teachers. So we contacted them, personally contacted them, and asked them if they would like to personally sub for Canal Winchester, and we could probably get the majority of them to sub every single day at some point. Full-time subs, not on the agenda, but subbing for us. I believe we had 4 people that actually said they would do it, not full-time, but they would do it a couple days a week and only at specific buildings. So the sub pool is just not very strong, just not here, but throughout Central Ohio, well, throughout the state of Ohio. Schools are finding a hard time finding subs, period.
And I think one of my questions is, especially if we bring kids back full-time with the social distancing, because we know that we've had cases in our buildings, so we know that if we bring more students back for longer periods of time, we're gonna have more cases. So I think my question is, how do we maintain social distancing with coming back to a full-time schedule? So that's one of my big questions I
With
have.
our facilities, how do you keep them separated with those numbers?
And that came up from our teachers as well in the survey. A lot of, there's a narrative part that we have not gone through and done all the data, collecting all the information yet, but that's a concern that comes up quite regularly, is that social distancing and maintaining that. And that's what they think is part of why we're able to do what we're doing and stay healthy.
Because Jim, our numbers have been, I mean, we've been, thank you. It's been good, and a lot of that is maybe self-quarantine that happened like from a vacation or somewhere outside the school, but we've had to have teachers, not due to sickness, but just as, personal.
Quarantine, correct.
Personal family situations where they have to self-quarantine.
Yeah, we've had quite a few teachers that quarantine, but actually taught from home too. But we still have kids that are in the classroom. So we have to get an aide in there to do that. So someone has to be in the classroom with the teacher, even though the teacher is teaching from home. They still have to be in the classroom, and that's where that extra coverage comes from. It's more challenging now as we go through the school year to find people to sub for us.
But that covering, you're covering a classroom of 10 kids.
Correct.
Covering a classroom of 25 kids, that's where that strain is what I'm hearing, or I'm guessing is going to be.
I think that's more frequent, that it would probably happen than what it's happening right now, could put a strain on all of our staff across the district.
So, I'm sorry, I'm going to witness that.
I was just going to say, and to add to the discussion in regards to the Wednesdays and the hybrid schedule, it's been, Wednesdays have also been utilized for state mandated testing for CWLS students. So you have to factor that in as well.
That's a
for
great
that group
point,
of
that
students coming in on site.
Because they've been able to come in when there aren't as many students in the building, which has helped alleviate some of the concerns from those koala parents as well.
Mr.
Great point.
Whitlatch, when we did map testing, how many kids showed up? 95%?
K through 8, we were above 90%. We were actually higher at the elementary buildings for participation. So it's been a great collaborative effort between the staff and the parents. That it really worked out well. It really helped.
And that Wednesday helped out with our koala.
On Wednesdays.
So all in, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable having my children come in if there's all in every day. Like, so that would have to be worked out.
As a koala parent, you mean to have them come in and do something on site? That's a great point.
So I assume the plan that we're going to do is going to offer those who don't want to come in a koala experience as well as those who do come in. So,
Well,
I mean, that's
it's a plan we have right now. So we have the school-based track right now, and in the school-based track, you're either in 5 days a week or in hybrid, and then we have koala, which is the online learning. And it's for a semester only. So when parents signed up, you signed up for 1 semester. So koala kids will be in koala to the end of the semester, no matter what decision we make. If we come back early or not, they still stay koala. But the hybrid would come back if we decide to come back earlier before the end of the semester, then they would start whenever that date is. We also have an open, just to throw this out there for parents, we have the open enrollment for second semester will come up at the end of November, where parents can choose whether they want or school-based track or koala for second semester. That will start, I believe, don't quote me on this, people, but viewers, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and we'll go for 2 weeks, December 11th or 12th or something like that.
And that time's going to be reshuffling.
We'll have to reshuffle the
every
deck.
classroom,
Yes.
every situation,
Yeah.
depending on who chooses to stay koala.
Correct.
Or go koala, or who wants to come
Yeah.
back and do some type of in-person learning. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because we just need to get people thinking of, oh man, I've got to make that decision. Am I going to stay koala, or do I feel it's a good time to send my student back? And so we as teachers and administrators, we got to figure out classroom size, alphabet, A, B schedule. I mean, there's a lot going on. Busing, where's Doc at? There he is. We got busing to consider about, who we need to be transporting. So.
A question I had too was looking at the numbers. I know Franklin County, and obviously we're seeing spikes again. But what's going on? I know you keep an eye on Canal, Winchester. Are we seeing a leveling off of the numbers here? Are they starting to spike up? And I think that's my question as far as what's going on in our community.
Yeah, we saw the last couple weeks, and when we talk about cats, this is a report that comes from Ohio State University. And the latest report we got on Friday, pull it up on my laptop here.
Hey, Monica, pull your mic up when you talk.
Okay.
And basically is saying that Canal Winchester, we were at a rate of almost less than 50 cases per 100,000. And if you look at the CDC, if you look at Ohio Department of Health, that's when they start recommending things are going good for your district, when you're right around 50 cases per 100,000 and or lower. So we were doing well there we had 2 weeks at around 50, 55, and then the last couple of weeks we jumped up to 80, which is closer to the 100. So our numbers, now this is cases in Canal Winchester local school district community, not just in the school. So this is in our boundaries of Canal Winchester.
And it could be
local
Fairfield,
schools.
Franklin, Jim. It's just in our school district.
It is in our school district boundaries, Fairfield
okay.
and Franklin County. And so, they're doing this for all schools in central Ohio. Franklin County, the Ohio State is doing this. It's COVID analytical something. I can't remember what the other 2 letters stand for. But we've been getting this for the past 5 weeks. And so our numbers were at one point close to that 50, and we were looking really good. And then we started to see a spike back in the numbers again, which I think is correlating to the to the county back in red level at this time. And quite frankly, I'm going to knock on wood again, and I probably shouldn't say this, but our numbers in regards to actual COVID positive cases is extremely low. And we've had several quarantine issues going on, and that's one of the biggest concerns about going back full time, because now social distancing goes out the door. So that 6 feet and 15-minute period of time, we cannot provide that with all students being back. And that's a concern, because now, especially at the high school level, if one student and if we have classes of 2025, which we probably will at the high school level, I think elementary, we'll probably be good at 20, 21, 22 maybe at that level, but still the classrooms are small. I mean, you got a lot of kids in there. And so that social distancing guideline goes away. So now anyone that is test positive, or you got to go and contact trace, and anyone that was within that 6 feet and 15-minute period of time, and if you're in a 40-minute classroom, that's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 kids that sit around you. And that's every classroom that you had to go back. We had a couple school districts within the last couple weeks where 1 or 2 students, now this is mostly high school, and they were 2 students, they put out 60 kids on quarantine. They didn't, not that they had positive tests for COVID, but quarantine issues. And that's something that is what schools that have gone back 5 days a week, they're starting to see, is that kids maybe not necessarily having COVID, but they're in that quarantine issue. So now they're out, and then you affect the families too. So either way, you affect the families one way or another. We have to look at right now what is best for Canal Winchester local schools moving back. Are the numbers low because of everything we are doing? Are the numbers low in our community because of what we're doing? Nobody knows that answer yet. The schools that are back, I talked to their superintendents, the local ones, and they don't know. And so the only difference, they're not doing anything different than what we would do if we go back. There's no magic formula. They're not doing, they got to wear masks, and the social distancing goes out the door when you're back full time, but they're doing a proper hand hygiene and everything else in there. It's that social distancing that plays a major part. In our communities, it's everywhere. We're still at 15% capacity in sporting events. We can only have 15% of our families.
I think that's going to hold true for winter sports, Jim?
They already came out. That's going to hold true.
Okay.
So that's going to be their restaurants. Everything's at capacity at a certain limit. And yet, and yet we're saying to our kids, just go back to school, put 800 kids in the building, even though the rates might not be as high as it is with adults. Let me take that back. The 16 to 25 are the second highest rates going up right now because kids are social beings. They want to be with their friends. And it's maybe not necessarily school, but it's what they're doing outside of school, but then it comes into school. And that's what people might not necessarily see that. Younger kids, parents control them a little bit better. And so that could be a reason why the numbers aren't high down there. Don't know that yet. I don't have the evidence. I'm not the infectious disease doctor. I'm just going by what I'm reading and by what I'm hearing through my weekly report. So, but I also understand the importance of getting our kids back. And that's the biggest challenge right there, is when do you bring them back? What is that time frame? Because it's not going away. We understand this. It's not going away. They might come up with a vaccine. They will come up with a vaccine. Don't know when. But the coronavirus is never going away. It's a virus. So we have to learn to live with it. So do we need a little bit more time before we make a decision whether we go back 5 days a week, all in? My recommendation right now would be, let's give it some more time. Let's see what's going on out there. Let's not be in a rush to go through something and then all of a sudden we come back and we see this huge spike. As Carla said, and if you, for my talk with our administrators, we're going to make some changes and do things a little differently with hybrid and koala, hopefully to make it a better learning experience for all kids. I've heard that there's not enough work and there's too much work. So we got to come up with, okay, what's the best?
I've heard that same thing. And I don't know, is it just the student? Because for me as a student, everything was too much work. I mean, so I don't know where that's coming from, or,
I think from a board perspective, you need to listen to the constituents, taxpayers, and it sounds like it's 50-50 at this point. They're somewhat on the fence. I think the biggest worry for me financially and is from the staffing standpoint. We knew from the very beginning that we were going to have a hard time getting subs. We knew it. We didn't reduce staff at all when we could have. What we said at the very beginning was, let's keep all the parapros that we have. Let's have all the teachers, all the support people, keep them in place, because we knew that the kids were going to struggle from home in the 3 days online. So we said, let's keep those support pieces in place. They can help the teaching staff to make sure nobody is left behind. If we come back 5 days a week, and I'm a risk taker. If you ask me, you want your kid to come back 5 days, I would say yes, I'm willing to do that. However, if we bring kids back 5 days and all of a sudden the virus does spread in the district, teachers aren't comfortable or they are getting positive tests, and then they're out of the building, what's our contingency plan at that point without being able to get the subs? Right now, we're probably able to cover a little bit more with the lower classes, having the extra parapros, having the extra teachers. But if we come back with classes of 2025, and we start having the staff miss, what do we do at that point? And I think without that answer, we can't have the question to come back.
The answer would be we go remote learning.
Right, and I think that's, I don't think anybody really wants
And
to
so
do
those
that.
hybrid kids go all remote learning, just like we have with Koala. If we know that a
That's not-
building level, grade level is out because of that, then they go all remote learning. So they're not in school, period, then.
And I think
So they're
right
just
now,
all
it seems
online.
like a lot of teachers, and I know this from being a teacher and being a parent, is that they're starting to lean on us more to give up our planning time and to cover other teachers. And then it gets to a certain point where that starts to wear thin, and then you start to put more pressure on your people who are healthy, but then how long does that last? So those are all things that I think we need to take into consideration when we're thinking of a plan moving forward. So, but, you know, and one other thing I was thinking about is we were talking about how we've been doing a pretty good job in the model we're in. And I know one of the things that we did was we spent some money and made an investment on buying some of the personal protective equipment and then the cleaning stuff, supplies. And one of the questions I had was, you know, moving forward, I know we spent a little bit of money on the front end to kind of get us up to speed, but are we going to be able to use our staff and continue to do the deep cleaning and things like that in-house? So then that way, if we do need subs or we do have those issues moving forward, that we have the fund and we're not using our money on things that maybe we could be saving money and also protecting our teachers and our parents and our students at the same time. So I think that was one of the questions I had. And I know we invested in some equipment, and maybe Mr. Roberts, you can help me out with that. But is that something that we're going to be able to continue to do in-house, and is that going to, we can save some money moving forward? And that's just something I think about too.
No, it's 100% sustainable. We wouldn't have done it if it wasn't sustainable.
Okay.
And that was a big discussion point on some of the cleaning materials and that type of thing. Is it sustainable after the first year? And it is. So, I mean, we're going to do whatever financially
Yeah.
to make that work. Whether it's, I'm not going to sit here and say we don't have some savings. We do have savings. We didn't have as many trips with athletics. We don't have the sub cost that we've had in the past years. So we are having some savings. Yeah, we didn't reduce staff or anything like that, but we are having savings other places to where we are supplying that. We still do have CARES funding. That's still a possibility that comes out again. So that's helping. So we do have a plan in place to keep these things going as we move forward.
And we are using our own folks for that cleaning, right?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we bought the materials and the foggers and things. So that was a savings. We could have kept having a third-party company do it. Instead, we went ahead and bought the machines, bought the product to do it ourselves and save costs there.
Okay.
After the initial
Yeah.
cleaning, we are doing it now, and it's on a, Mike Bridge has it set up for once a month, and there are 2 separate days, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so it's going well right now.
Carla, what if we brought back just Indian Trail? Does it make sense to bring a building by building or just a high school? Does that make any sense from your standpoint? Does it do anything to bring?
In all honesty, I don't know that I have enough information to answer that question. I think a lot of that comes down to the specifics of what the plan would look like. You know what I'm saying? What it would look like to bring in, let's say, K-2 or not. I don't know. I haven't studied that, and I have not talked to the membership about that, so I don't feel comfortable really saying. I know that we're open to talk about all kinds of things. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, this outside-the-box thinking, I think, has really been good for all of us, and the teachers are willing to think like that. But they're, you know, they want to remain safe, and it's that risk. Do you know what I'm saying? Finding that line, which I don't envy your decision. Do you know what I'm saying? And having to make that, because I know there's a lot to weigh on that. So I really don't have an answer.
As a teacher in Indian Trail, would you be like, oh, great, my building's the one getting 5-day, 4-day-a-week back?
I think you'd get
Winchester
answers
doesn't?
across the gamut. I think some would be, yeah, let's do it. And I think
Okay.
some would be like, whoa, Nellie. I think it would be across, as with most things in this time. You know, it ranges.
Yeah, and I would say it may present a different set of challenges for families who have more than one child in different buildings
Right,
to
right.
accommodate their schedule.
Makes sense, yeah.
And I think the one thing that we have to do is, whatever we do, whatever we decide, going back to 100% remote is got to be it's got to be our last gasp. I mean, to me, that's just not viable.
And the teachers agree with you on that. I mean, I kind of compare this to a marathon. Slow and steady wins the race. You know what I'm saying? We really want to get to the end, and we do not want to be flipper flapper and back between hybrid to remote to full to you know what I'm saying? That is worse for our students and our staff. So that's just kind of an analogy that we've talked about. So I would agree with you. We do not want to be 100% remote, and having that time with the kids, be it 2 days a week, is better than no days a week,
Yes,
face to
and-
face.
Hey, Brooke, I see you back. How is your staff handling the hybrid, the koala? If you could come up, I'm concerned about how this is affecting your kiddos.
It varies. Our most severe, our students in our self-contained classrooms are attending 4 to 5 days a week, so they are getting a lot more instruction throughout the week with their teachers. Those teachers also, though, are doing both jobs. They have some kids in their classes who are online in Koala and some who are in their classrooms, so the teachers are really struggling to try to meet the needs of both the students at home and the students in school. Our other students that are coming in on the hybrid 2 days a week, I have heard from some of my intervention specialists that they feel like they're doing more with them, that they're covering like a lot more within that time that they're in there because the groups are smaller, they've got a lot more time with them. So I'm hearing a lot of positives with that in terms of feeling like they have some good time with them. I think one of the biggest concerns across the board for all teachers, special ed or general ed, is just kids doing the work at home. You know, just really trying to help support the kids when they're at home and encouraging them to keep working, you know, even when they're not in front of the teacher. But I've got both sides of it, but you know, I heard a lot more positives out in the building last week than I expected.
Okay.
Which is good.
Because I know every family has a completely different makeup than the next, and
Right.
And I think that has some bearing on successes or not as successful situations. Yeah.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
I know the whole hybrid model is new to everyone.
Thank you, Brooke.
Can you elaborate on, like, what are we doing to tweak it, to make it better? Because speaking from my student, my son is a sophomore, and he's really not getting challenged at all. On the days he's at home, he might only be doing 1 hour work, if that. So can you, like, elaborate? I know.
I got one of those too, so just so you know.
So we've had some very good discussion. I know the middle school, high school sent out a survey to their staff on things that they are looking at possibly doing better, more challenging for our kids. Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Zipchak, did you get any of the input back, if you'd like to address that?
At the middle school, last week I had my teachers meet by departments in each grade level. So all, for example, 6th grade language arts met 6th grade math and so forth. And then we're meeting vertically as by content areas on Wednesday. So I had them do an after-action review about positives, what they thought it would look like, what it looks now, and things that we can improve on, like how are they when compared to their curriculum maps and pacing, where are they, and so forth. We had a lot of positives. They love the small group support. They feel that they can intervene, like that if a student doesn't get a concept. Our biggest hiccup right now is the remote learning piece, where we tried to do a complete flipped classroom model, but our students are coming back from remote days, and half of them have done the work, half of them may have not. So we're really looking at that and fine-tuning that. So how to get a middle schooler to do their remote learning at home. So we're looking at different recognition, and we reach out to parents who have a student who's failing more than one course and so forth. And then my students who are struggling with remote work, we took them out of their current related arts class, and they're in a support study skills class to give them more intervention when they're in the building with me. So trying to figure out what I can control at the building as well.
What are you doing for the kids that aren't getting challenged?
That we are looking at as a department on Wednesday.
Okay.
So just trying to look at the work balance of versus social studies and say 8th grade versus language arts and so forth.
Ditto. I stole what Kelly did with the middle school. Pretty much the information was very, very similar. With the flipped classroom model, we're finding that kids just aren't doing it at home. That's when they're supposed to be doing a lot of their work, and they're coming back and they've not done it. So we did put together, all of our staff had input into it. Each department met and then got input from their teachers. So this Wednesday, then we're going to go over that data that everybody has put together. summarized it all for them, gave it back to them, and then Wednesday we're going to talk about ways that we can, what are the top 3 things that we can do better to make the hybrid model more effective. So we are worried about like our koala students too. So across the board, we're just trying to do exactly what Mr. Seiler said, just try and make things better.
Well, you got some data too. I mean, we're 6 weeks, 7 weeks in, so that we have data, we can figure out what is working. So now hopefully you have that, we can make some of those changes to engage students that, aren't feeling challenged. And I know, Paul, you had some of that, maybe not even being challenged, but feel like they're just not getting enough. And I think that's good for us to start making those changes when we can.
But it's like Mr. Seiler said, though, on one end I hear teachers or kids are saying, my kid's not being challenged, and on the other end we've got parents saying, dear Lord, you're giving way too much. So it doesn't seem like there's anything in the middle, at least for us. It seems like they're on one end or the other.
Okay.
Not too many people are saying, wow, you're spot on, this is awesome. So I will say, though, the information we got back from our teachers, it was very positive. They have a lot of good ideas when I'm putting that together. So, I mean, there are some things that I know that we're going to change about it to make it better.
Well, the thing to me is, how do you improve the quality of instruction with 2 or 3 or 4 different models at the same time? And I think we're going to have to eventually narrow it down to just 1 or 2. I mean, if you're going to get quality instruction to the kids.
Well, I mean, I think we'd all agree that the best thing would be to go back, but I don't know that that's the right answer at this time. I think we need to sit back and wait and see. That's my personal opinion. You didn't ask for it, but I gave it to you.
That's okay.
I did forget to mention that we're surveying our students too, since they're our customers. See they have any improvement ideas as well.
So, and that's a challenge. So this is actually started week 8, I think, now. So we have 7 weeks in.
Keep guessing, so it
Yeah,
isn't.
no, I think this is the 8th
Okay.
week, so. And so we're trying, the teachers, they've worked the last week and a half on figuring out, sitting down together, what's working, what's not working, and how do we make it better. So I don't have a direct answer to that question at this time, but I do know the middle school, high school have been working on it because they understand the same thing. We got to make sure that we're providing quality instruction both ways, in the classroom and during the hybrid model. At the same time, we got to make sure our kids are doing the work, and when they're coming to school, they are prepared for their time in there. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge when we're 5 days a week to get kids to do the work.
Sure.
And now this is different. However, I hear, and I'm going to go off a little bit here, but I hear a lot about preparing kids for college all the time. And I'm going to tell you this right now, what we're doing at the high school level is preparing kids for the next, whether it's college or the workforce, is probably more than any other time, because now they got to be independent learners, they got to be self-motivated, they got to have that grit, that perseverance to work through all these adversity stuff that we normally not necessarily do all the time because we hold their hands through it, whether it's kindergarten and or 12th grade. And so this is not that I want to do this forever. I want our kids back, but however, it's a good experience for our kids because when they do go to college, and many of you have college, you're going to take an online class. You're going to take several of them throughout your college careers, and you have to be prepared for it. And so in a way, there are positives that come out of everything that we're doing, and we are going to take some things that we're doing now and continue to move them forward in the school years. I don't want to revert back to just what we have done the past 50 years in education. We have an opportunity now here with everything we have learned to make this the best learning environment once we get back to 5 days a week.
And I think I spoke to you, Carl, about that. I think our teachers, I mean, they're sharpening their saw a little bit, and it's definitely been a challenge, but I think it's been some growth.
Absolutely. I would speak for experience. I would agree with you 100% on that, change is hard for everyone, not just the students, but the teachers are working exponentially to meet those needs of their students. And we're learning too. We weren't trained to teach during a pandemic. That wasn't a class I took in college, so.
This is your first one though, right?
This is my first one, do you know what I'm saying? And other challenges, not just the pandemic. Like for me, I'm on a cart now. I've never been on a cart. This is year 28, and I've never had to teach from a cart. So I'm learning. I feel like I'm a first-year teacher. But kudos, our teachers are stepping up, and they are really trying. It's not perfect. I'll be the first one to tell you we've all made errors and mistakes, and we're learning, and I see constant improvement. as a teacher from my peers, but also as a parent. I have a senior over at the high school. So, it's a challenge too, to work with her to get her through everything. But we're growing and we're changing. And I think that there is a lot of good, as Mr. Sattler says, that can come out of this change. So
I think Mike was a young educator during the first pandemic.
I had Mike as a teacher, but not during the first pandemic. So
That's it. I've got another question. I said I was going to, Mr. Riddle, can you come up?
Doug, you got 6 feet.
And I'm just asking you, Eric, just because you and I have had this conversation. But Paul touched on it a little bit earlier about the social behavioral. And you had told me that you and your staff, I know everybody else is, but if you could just speak to some of that on Wednesdays, some of those, not specifically, but what you're doing on Wednesdays to check in with the kids and the families.
Well, it's not just me.
Right.
It's myself and the teachers and Mrs. Cobb. And I think one person we haven't mentioned today who's done a fantastic job is our district social worker, Kim Voyacek. She's been visiting home, providing resources and support for some of our families who definitely need it. Mrs. Cobb and I know some of the Winchester Trail administrators also went personally to the homes, knocked on the door, took information that Alyssa Locker, our instructional coach, has created, a step-by-step resource to how to navigate through Google Classroom. And that has been very effective to working with some of the families. Yes, we've been invited into the homes. I've sat on the couch with the second grader in the kindergarten with the parent there, and we worked through them. So has Mrs. Cobb, so has Mrs. Voyacek, so has Mr. Lawlithan. And we feel more of a need to do that because of the dependency of our students and their age group. And for some of our families that may, not follow the process all the way through. So we've used a lot of resources. I think, at Winchester Trail, at all the buildings, it's all hands on deck. And, we all take a piece and run with it. Is it perfect? No. Like we've mentioned, when I got my principal license, I don't think anyone else here either read that page on how to be an administrator through a pandemic either. And, we're doing the best we can. I think one of the best analogies, we're kind of building the plane as we're flying in it. And we've had some great successes, like we've mentioned. And we also, are vulnerable enough to stand up here and say, hey, I also know there's some areas we need to improve on. And, we're going to have our building leadership team meeting on Thursday. We're going to run through some other hybrid options. What can we do better? Then we're going to have grade level meetings next week and continue to brainstorm it. But hats off to the teachers, hats off to everyone in the district who have really just, put such a great effort forward in a circumstance which is, not normal.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have Kim here because I would like to hear from Kim a little bit about what her day consists of because this is all new for her.
Yes.
I mean, as well as everybody. So.
Yeah, and she has been a very, very big.
Because I know we've tried to really get some resources, for students in that behavioral mental health capacity at all levels.
Yeah, and with our school counselor, she's still during the school-based days, she's doing small groups. She has the ability with some plexiglass and so forth to do small groups, school counseling sessions still. She's still meeting with parents via phone or via Google Meet sometimes on Wednesday. So. We're still trying to meet those social needs that our students need. I would say now more than ever. We still have Calissa Deccan. We still have a Nationwide Children's Hospital reps. They're intern from Ohio State. So we do have a lot of resources. And I think that now more than ever, they're needed and appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I want to say, I think the one staff, the custodians, I kind of call are our first line of defense with keeping everything clean. And I think we also need to be careful not to wear them thin, because I know like one day last week, both of our day custodians were out. So then it was one of the night custodians had to come in, and like the maintenance guys were covering until the night custodian could get in. So I think it's one of those things that we also need to be cognitive of. They're also kind of our first line of defense and making sure everything's clean and how to do that. And so I also want to give them a shout out because they have been working very hard to help do that.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? John, what do you got?
I got one. Jim, how often do you still maintain normal or regular contact with the health department?
Every Tuesday. I got a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
I've
Zoom
seen
meeting.
studies that I don't know where they're from, but let's say going full-time in school might be more effective in preventing the spread of the coronavirus than doing hybrid, because the kids are exposed to less people. Because when they go home, there's caretakers and things like that. Have they mentioned anything about that?
What study? I don't know what study that you're referring to,
I
so,
just-
because there's studies out there that say everything, one way or the other, so you got to be more specific.
I know the county did come out with recommendations back in, what was that, July? So right now, I know we haven't really heard a lot from them lately, but what is the county, Franklin County recommending at this time? Or what are the I know it's just recommendations, and we kind of been through that.
Hybrid and.
Well, one, they're going to sit there and say that's a local Board of Education decision to make, but they recommend the hybrid model.
Okay.
If you're not in the all online model. So they have not recommended, even when we are at orange level, because the numbers, even though we are at orange level, the numbers in Franklin County came down, but not to the point where they would recommend all back in all in learning 5 days a week. So we do have the recommendation from the Franklin County Board of Health, Public Health, saying hybrid model is what they still recommend moving forward. But at the same time, like the governor would tell you, and like any Department of Health commissioner would tell you, that's a local school Board of Education decision to make. They're not putting, they're not requiring anything like they were mandating, like they did last March, April, and May.
Okay.
So.
Except the masks, that's all the mandate.
Besides mask, yeah, mask is the one mandate.
Okay.
That we have to have. We can't get away from that. So.
Yeah, keep going.
And one last question. Now, do you plan to reach out to the schools that are going 5 days a week? I think New Albany probably mirrors us the best, because they're a suburban school that borders another county. I believe they have one building for like K through 2, one building for the same as us, and one middle school and one high school.
Yeah.
They're similar in our size.
Correct.
Do you have any intention to contact their superintendent to see how things are going with their plan?
Yeah, we talk weekly.
Okay.
So we go back and forth, ask how he's doing. So I mean, they're back 2 weeks, so they're still
Have their
gathering the
numbers-
data.
Have their numbers shown any change?
As of right now, their community numbers have gone up, but the number in the school, I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know if the community number has gone up because they're back in school. That's the correlation. I don't know. But their community spread numbers have gone up. And even though they're very similar, they are different from Canal Winchester too.
Right.
So.
Right. All districts are different, but
yeah.
I think of the districts around Central Ohio, they're probably the closest to us in terms of physical buildings and students.
The setup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The setup.
Do you have
Yep.
any idea the Taze Valley and so on?
Have not heard from Taze Valley in regards to their numbers. I know their community spread numbers are up, but again, I don't know if that's I don't know how it's affecting the schools.
Okay.
So more than likely, the numbers are going to be down in school, just because of the younger population possibly. But there's a spread. Sometimes we think of school, we also have to think of community too. And that's another factor that we put into play. It's just not our kids, it's just not our teacher. There's a second, third order effects that for everything. There's mom and dad at home, grandma and grandpa, aunt and uncle, people that are living there, commuting back downtown Columbus, where we know the spread is more prevalent down there than out there. So there are a lot of factors that go into it, just not your actual school. Our numbers down because we're doing what we're doing with the hybrid, with the social distancing, the face masking, and all the other protocols that we put in place that we can do. If we bring the kids back to social distancing, we got 450 kids at the high school. I bring it back, that's 900 kids now that we're putting in one setting. And that's something that the state has been trying to avoid, but schools are doing it. So I don't know yet. I don't have, this is only 7 weeks for a lot of schools, and we're just going into now the actual flu season itself. Is it going to get better or worse? No one knows. I think giving it a little more time to see how it goes.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll sit there and say, even if we wait this semester, we'll wait till after the break to come back, and if numbers haven't gone up, even if we're in red level, if we're seeing that the school-age kids and the numbers aren't doing, I'd be more than happy to sit there and say, let's try it.
So we should put.
But I don't know right now. That's what I don't know. That's the unknown.
But what I would like to do is have the administration and with the union and folks and get together. Let's come up with a plan.
Yes.
So when the time is
Formulate
right,
a plan.
we don't have to sit here and go, okay, let's start planning for it. I'd like to come up with a plan, have it approved, have it in, obviously it can be moved at some point, but, I'd like to just see what it looks like.
Well, I'm not, because we have a plan already.
Sure.
So I'm not quite sure, when we say come up with a plan, I'm not quite sure what we'll be
Let me
doing
rephrase
differently.
that. Come up with a plan, how we get more days with everybody in. What does that look like from a busing standpoint, from a cafeteria?
Yep.
From an inside recess? I mean, what's that look like?
Well, and I was going
if-
to say, the thing that came up when I was reading the comments, lunch is the big concern. How do you
Correct.
eat lunch with the mask off for this amount of time and keep everybody safe? So, like, the lunch would be one of the big areas
Yeah.
to figure out.
And schedule.
I guess that's what I mean by a plan.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have a plan,
Yeah.
we're doing the hybrid, we're doing it successfully, but if we were to go back 4 days, 5 days, what does that look like from A to Z? Because I think if we don't start looking at that, we'll
We've
never
been
get
looking
there.
at it for, I wish I could sit here and say, man, there's gonna be all these changes. There's not. We're gonna bring more kids in the building. So instead of having 11 kids in a classroom, you got 22. And the teachers are gonna have to do their best to spread them out. The hallways, you're gonna maintain as best as you can now, 6 feet of spacing. If it's, you might take up the whole hallway with the class of 20 kids out there. I mean, there's not gonna be a whole lot of different changes if we come back in all day, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever it happens to be. We're just gonna have more kids in the building, which then reduces your social distancing. And so those are the things that we're trying to figure out. Your free, or not free time, but your lunches, that's a huge concern of where that's gonna happen, because right now, we're pretty good at spacing our kids out. If we bring back all the kids, you're pretty much, you're gonna have kids sitting right across from each other with no mask on, eating for 20 minutes at a time.
I know for me, one of the things.
And that's a
that-
huge concern.
Transitions is a big issue. I know something that I see on a daily basis. And I know I know we're having a little bit more space at the high school, but our middle school or elementary schools, if we're transitioning with double the amount of students in our classroom, I think that's something that we got to keep in mind too, because then we create more incidents for spread, and we have other people coming into the building. So I think that's just something we got to keep an eye on. So I don't know, that's just my perspective.
We've been working with, I know Dr. Burning's been working on the busing, knowing that we're gonna have different bus stops, and, things will look different, getting kids. The kids are 2 on a bus now, so we gotta really think about, when we have that amount of kids coming back, that's an issue.
I think you're more referencing the detail of the plans. Let's say if Indian Trail has 20 teachers out, God forbid, at one time, what are we gonna do? Is that school gonna be closed? Or are we gonna have, because we know subs aren't available. If we have 10 bus drivers, we're just not gonna be able to transport kids. I think some detailed into the plans instead of just kind of praying that, oh, we hope that doesn't happen.
All the administrators are getting their CDL license
Oh, okay.
with the Board of Education, so, sorry, I had to throw that out there. But yeah, if that happens, we're gonna have to close. We won't be able to handle that. If we have that amount of staff or bus drivers out.
And that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I think
well,
the
yeah.
contingency plans of,
So.
Yeah,
I
we
think,
just closed.
the staffing is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle
Yeah.
of getting back. Do you come back too soon and everything backfires, things go up, and then you revert yourself back to an online? I don't think you want to do
I
that.
think the hybrid schedule would be the fallback, would it not?
If there was a plentiful bound of subs, I don't think it would be an issue. But they're just not available. I think the biggest topic is the state of the Department of Education has to release that bachelor's requirement or something to make it easier to become a sub, whether you pass your background check, you pass a drug test, you do some of those things and get more applicants into the pool. But when it's a bachelor's degree, it just limits your pool of what is available. It just does. So until we can change the way that's set up, and people aren't, and then there's the subs that aren't comfortable with working. They don't want to come in and be around the students. So you've got that piece of it. So it was hard enough to find subs, but now the pandemic has added even more difficulty to getting the sub. So if we come back full time and you have a bunch of staff missing, because there's a huge federal requirement of 4 different pieces. If you were around somebody, you've got to quarantine. So there are certain restrictions placed by the federal government that we have to do, that if you don't have the staff available to replace them, then it's putting strain on everybody else, and I think it could lead to chaos.
Right now, my recommendation, the best course of action is to stay with the hybrid for now. If the numbers weren't spiking the way they were the last couple of weeks, and we weren't red level, we probably have a different conversation right now. But I cannot make any other recommendations. We were in hybrid back in August when we were in red, and the numbers were just as bad. Matter of fact, they're worse now than then. And so I have a hard time thinking, why would we go full-time when things are worse? Now, once we get through the semester, we see how things are going for other districts, then I could sit here and say we could have a different conversation for second semester to see how those numbers go. I know it's not the ideal plan. I understand the concerns from Mr. Markoff and a lot of our parents out there. I agree with them. The best place for our kids is 5 days a week. Unfortunately, I can't do 3 different plans. I can't do a hybrid all in for some kids and koala. I don't have enough, there's not enough staffing or space to do that. If that was the case, we would have done that at the start of the school year, but we can't have that option. So it's either the school-based, the all-in hybrid, or it's the koala. And so there's nothing more than I want than to get our kids back in school. I mean, it's kind of eerie walking into schools and there's only half the kids in the building. The hallways aren't, loud, and lunches aren't. Yeah. And so I know our staff wants them back. They want to have their kids. I have many families that I talk to that have young kids that work, and it's challenging for them. I totally understand that. I'm not saying it's not. And like the comment that I hear, I'm not a teacher. I do this for a living. I don't know how to teach my kids. I totally understand. However, we need cooperation, collaboration. We just need help from everyone out there for at least these next few weeks to see how things go. And so it's not an easy decision. My job's not to make a tough decision. My job's to make the right decision. And I think the board has to think of that too. What's the right decision for our school district, for our kids, for our employees, for our community moving forward?
Well, I want to thank everybody for their input, for the conversation. Again, I think this was, it was very helpful for me to hear from all different perspectives. And hopefully folks at home can get a better understanding of all what goes into a decision of bringing everybody back or not bringing everybody back. It's very complicated, and I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Does anybody else have any questions before we close meeting? Mr. Metzler? No?
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla, Deanna.
Thank you.
I think what's important, Matt, for the people to know, right now, we're still going to maintain with the hybrid model. I just want to clarify that to make sure that everyone says we're going to continue with that. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. And as soon as we feel it's best to get our kids back to school 5 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever happens to be, we're going to get them back. That's my goal.
Amen.
Do I have a motion to close the meeting tonight?
So moved.
Mr. Butler, Mr. Yanati is a second. Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Unati?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Metzler?
Yep.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0. We're at 9:14. Thank you.